Welcome, everybody. So, it's so great to see you all here on this cold, snowy January day. It warms my heart. But let me suggest, we all put out 450 BTUs an hour. So let me suggest we all squeeze together a little bit, especially you guys over there. So I'm Jeff Migneault, co-president of CARI, which is short for Climate Action Rhode Island. So for all of you that don't know, Climate Action Rhode Island is a local chapter of 350.org. We're a grassroots, largely volunteer organization dedicated to the equitable and just transition from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy. We focus most of our effort in Rhode Island, although sometimes beyond. And we have a table over there manned by Joel. If we got some swag and some more information. And if you're not on our mailing list, please sign up. And if you want to make a donation, you can do that too there. That would be appreciated. So I'm just going to make a couple opening remarks before I turn the program over to Caitlin Sanford, my terrific co-president. So we chose to gather here today for two reasons. First, it's Inauguration Day. As all of you know, a couple hours ago, Donald J. Trump became the President of the United States of America again. It's incomprehensible. The second reason we picked today is because it's Martin Luther King Day. Can you imagine two men more different, more opposite? Trump is hateful, greedy, and divisive. He and his minions are going to do many truly heartbreaking things. They have already begun. So we are here today in solidarity with each other to stand against him and his regressive policies. Dr. King, in contrast, was a man of love, generosity, and community. And we are here in his spirit today, not because of hate, but because of love. That is why we're all here. Love of each other, love of our children and young people everywhere, love of the more vulnerable among us and across the globe, and love of nature, of the natural world. And we work for and we fight for what we love. We fight for the planet and all its inhabitants. The title of the last book that Dr. King wrote before his assassination was titled, "Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?" And I think that's still the question for America today, maybe especially today. And looking out today at all of you, I think our answer is clear. I think Rhode Island's answer should be clear, that we choose community over chaos, we choose love over hate, and we choose the planet over the profits of oil companies. So thank you, all of you, for coming out on this cold day, and I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you all so much for being here. When we get uncomfortable, we know we're doing this for a great cause, and we'll think of those who will have to suffer the most from pollution, environmental injustice, and extreme weather and disasters that are coming. We will not forget or abandon them. We got a little cheer coming. Your part is to say, stand up, fight back, all right? When the land we love is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Yeah. When the air we breathe is under attack, what do? When the water we drink is under attack, what do? Yeah. When the planet we need is under attack, what do? What do? That's right, that's right. All right, gather up, huddle up. We have a bunch of amazing speakers tonight. First, I want to welcome Darrell Brown. I've been so moved by Darrell's immense impact and courage as the Vice President of the Conservation Law Foundation. He's held a number of leadership positions throughout our state in Washington and Maryland. And he's always been taking on the incumbent powers, harming racial justice, equity, harming our environment. Darrell is unyielding in fighting racism, showing how the harms of racism affect us all, and fighting for a cleaner, greener Rhode Island with the law, always speaking truth to power, being extremely courageous. Darrell, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a little windy up here, so I hope my papers don't fly away here. Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. I want to thank the rally organizer, Climate Action Rhode Island, for bringing us together. I'm Darrell Brown, Conservation Law Foundation's Vice President for Rhode Island. For those of you who may not know about CLF, we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting New England's environment for the benefit of all people. For nearly 60 years, CLF has used the law, science, and markets to create solutions that preserve our natural resources, build healthy communities, and sustain a vibrant economy. In short, we make existing protections work harder for Rhode Islanders and all New Englanders. We push for new protections when they don't exist, and we actively sue polluters by taking them to court and hold them accountable. So today, we gather on the steps of our state capitol to rally for the planet and to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is because of Dr. King's vision and courage that we live today in a more just society. All of you know of Dr. King for his role in the civil rights movement, but it is important to recognize his fight for the environment and environmental justice. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King said these words, which have resonated within the environmental justice movement. Everyone, regardless of their background, wants the opportunity to strive, thrive, and live on a healthy planet. But for too long, people in power have forced some communities to live with too much pollution and other environmental harms that prevent them from thriving. Those unequally distributed harms are what the environmental justice movement aims to address. This intersection of the civil rights and environmentalism is not just a modern day concern. It stems from the principle Dr. King championed and for which he was assassinated. Dr. King fought against economic and racial injustice. He understood that true equality could not be achieved without addressing the systemic inequalities that affect people's lives. Environmental justice is a continuation of Dr. King's fight for human and civil rights. In 1968, during the Memphis sanitation workers' strike, Dr. King advocacy converged with environmental justice. The Memphis sanitation workers' strike was not just about labor rights and jobs, it was also about the deplorable working conditions and the lack of regard for the health and safety of sanitation workers, who were primarily black men. Two Memphis garage collectors, E. Cole and Robert Walker, had died on the job. Dr. King's direct engagement and support for these workers highlighted the connection between social justice and environmental working conditions. Environmental injustice continues today. You all have heard about the contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, to our very own Port of Providence, where we experienced dirty fires with plumes of black smoke, toxic spills on Allen's Avenue, and the stench of poor air quality emanating from the polluting facilities and businesses near vulnerable communities in South Providence. We all know that these issues are not isolated incidents, but part of a broader pattern of historical systemic neglect and discrimination. Dr. King's historical call for equality and justice demands that we confront these disparities and work towards a fix where your race or your socioeconomic status does not matter. That includes our friends and neighbors right here in Providence. I spoke a minute ago about the Port of Providence and environmental harms there. Why? Why should Port of Providence neighborhood communities be subject to the most harm? Simply because they have less political power? Simply because of the color of their skin? Or the balance in their bank accounts? That's why we organize. That's why we fight. Because we deserve a healthy, thriving environment too. Dr. King believed in the power and influence of nonviolent civic action. It's encouraging to see so many folks and organizations out in the freezing cold today as a collective. As we confront our environmental challenges today, we should be motivated by his achievements to work together and advocate for sustainable practices that protect us and our planet for future generations. To do so, we must hold corporations and our government accountable for their impact on our planet and advocate and prioritize meaningful policies that protect the health and well-being of us all. As we draw inspiration from Dr. King's emphasis on nonviolent civil action, let's remember that he believed in the power of empathy, love, compassion, and grassroots activism that gave voice to the hopeless, all while speaking truth to power and the misguided. Our advocacy is guided by this tradition. We seek to shift the balance of power so communities can create their own path forward to demand justice and purposeful change. As we reflect on Dr. King's legacy, let us remember that the fight for justice is broad and long. It encompasses not only civil, human, and economic rights, but also the right to a safe and healthy environment. Protecting the environment and advocating for environmental justice is merely an extension of Dr. King's dream, a dream of a just and equitable society where every individual can live out their own version of the American dream on a healthy planet, regardless of their background or socioeconomic status. In conclusion, so let us work together to ensure that Dr. King's vision for equality and justice extends to every aspect of our lives, from the soil we walk on to the air we breathe. It is through our collective efforts that we can create a society where we can empathize and show each other that we understand and can share the feelings of others. Then we can truly care, love, and support each other as human beings for the betterment of our planet, society, and for the benefit of future generations. I'm Darrell Brown, and I want to say, Donald Trump is now President of the United States. What we have to do is keep the faith, stay strong, and stay in the fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. Amazing. Next, I want to welcome Councilor Sue AnderBois. Woo! Longtime climate, environment, and sustainable food system advocate. Councilor AnderBois is so generous with her time. She stays optimistic despite setbacks. She's here as Providence City Councilor for Ward 3, which is Mount Hope, Hope Village / Summit, Collier Park, and Blackstone. She's currently the Deputy Majority Leader, Chair of the North Main Street Task Force, and Special Committee of Environment and Resiliency. Sue, woohoo!
Thank you, Caitlin. Hey, everybody. Yay. I don't know if I'm close enough, so sorry if I'm screaming. Hey, friends. So I'm Sue AnderBois, and as Caitlin already said, I'm a member of the Providence City Council, representing Ward 3. I really want to thank all the organizers, Climate Action Rhode Island, as well as fellow speakers and legislators, and all of you who showed up on this very cold day to support this today. It's moments like this where we all come together that keep us in the fight, that keep us working together and remind us why we're here. Today marks an important moment for all of us to recommit to the bold and necessary changes that our communities and our planet demand. As the White House switches hands today, we're anticipating an all-out attack on climate justice progress that we've made in the past few years. And let me be clear, even the progress we've made in the last few years has not been enough. Let's talk about, it's not. Let's talk about what the climate crisis looks like. In Providence, it looks like kids in South Providence struggling to breathe from pollution in the ports, which Darrell just talked so eloquently about. It looks like rising utility bills for families who are already stretched way too thin. It looks like disasters that are not at all natural, displacing folks who are teetering on the edge already. And it looks like neighborhoods, like all of ours, that flood every time it rains because our infrastructure is just not built for this new reality. The fight for climate justice is a fight for human dignity. Far too long, communities of color and working class Rhode Islanders have borne the brunt of the climate crisis that they did not create. That's why the solutions we pursue must put people first and work to right these historical injustices. The stakes could not be higher, my friends. The climate crisis will not wait for us to catch up. It's here, and it's hitting the most vulnerable among us first and worst. That's why we need to act boldly and act now. I've dedicated my career to fighting against climate change. Oops, not for. Whether it's helping to rethink our food systems, advocating for just transitions in our clean energy sector, learning how to turn this page, or in my role as a public servant here in the city of Providence. And here in Providence, we're not just talking about how to fight climate change, we're really making it happen. We're taking big steps right now, doing things like moving away from fossil fuel dependence by requiring that all municipal buildings be carbon neutral by 2040. An ordinance we passed unanimously earlier this year and is already being implemented. And with my colleagues on the City Council, we've made sure that environmental justice is baked into every part of the city's new comprehensive plan, which guides the city's growth for the next decade. We've set a path to reduce and eliminate parking minimums. If you don't know what those are, I did a really great video on those. I'll make sure you can all get it. We've increased density as our city grows while reducing our reliance on car-centric infrastructure. We're prioritizing urban forests, flood mitigation measures, and street safety, working to build a walkable, resilient city that works for all of us. And just a few short weeks ago, the Rhode Island Superior Court upheld the ordinance that was championed by my colleague Pedro Espinal that prohibits the expansion of liquid propane bulk storage facilities near our port. Yeah, that's huge. That's a big fucking deal. And the comprehensive plan opens the door for us to pass more prohibitions, halting the expansion of polluting industries that have harmed our port neighborhoods for too long. This work has many moving parts because the crises we face, from climate change to housing, public health, and transportation, they're all interconnected, and that means our solutions must be interconnected as well. This change happens when all of us, come together and stand and demand and work together for real action. While the federal government's work may slow, we're just getting started in Providence, you guys. I hope you see the City Council as a real partner in the years ahead. Please come to us with your ideas, your skills. Your help will help us get these bold ideas across the finish line. Because while the federal government may abandon us, may abandon our people and our planet, your City Council will not abandon you. We're here to do everything we can to usher in the change we so desperately need. This is about working hard to build a world where we can all thrive, with safe places to live, clean water to drink, clean air to breathe. It's not hard, you guys. A world where we value our environment and our communities and our people more than we value any corporation's bottom line. The work ahead is in rolling up our sleeves, standing together, and getting to work to make this a reality. Thank you all so much for being here today and for all you do. I'm looking forward to fighting with each and every one of you for our neighbors, for our city, and for this planet. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. All right, everyone, do a little dance. We're going to invite Rep. Morales up next, then Senator Kallman, then Rep. Stewart. So David Morales is House Representative for District 7, Mount Pleasant, Valley, and Elmhurst here in Providence. He is a tireless advocate for the working class. He knows how to communicate what climate and environmental challenges mean for real people. He's fighting for fair energy pricing, good jobs, respectful treatment of workers, action on climate change, considering the cost of replacing lead pipes. How is this so expensive? And much more. Rep. Morales, thanks for being here.
Now, brothers, sisters, and non-binary family, we're gathered here today because we recognize the urgency and the need for bold grassroots organizing. We recognize the need to organize, both at the national scale, but locally as well. Whether it is fighting against any proposal for fossil fuel development in our backyard, such as an expansion of the port, or whether it is ensuring that we maintain green spaces that are valuable, especially to some of our most vulnerable communities. And at the same time, making the investments necessary to support the needs of working people while working towards a future that is decarbonized. And as much as we see Rhode Island as a blue haven of democratic policies and democratic politicians, we have to recognize that there is still a need to push our politicians to be bold. Just earlier this week, Governor Dan McKee unveiled this year's proposed budget. And let's talk about what it did not include. It did not include the necessary funding to keep RIPTA going. We are looking at a $32 million deficit for our Rhode Island Public Transportation Authority. And that means a reduction of bus services. That means bus drivers being laid off. That means the insufficient funding to ensure that we get to a place where public transportation is seen as a reliable resource for everyone, free of cost. And these are the bold ideas that we have to advocate for, because they are not going to happen naturally at the State House. They're not going to happen naturally at City Hall. They're going to happen when the movement of diverse community members come together and advocate for these changes. Take a moment now to look around, because what you will see are folks that stand hand to hand with you. People of different ages, different backgrounds, all coming together because we recognize the importance of fighting for climate justice. Because we recognize that, yes, we have a threat at the national level between Trump and his cronies. But at the same time, we also know that our advocacy can take us so much further when we organize here amongst our neighbors, between the chambers of City Hall, between the walls of the State House. And so I'm going to implore all of us to continue showing up at the front lines, even when it's below 20 degrees, because we care. Because we're going to make sure that our voices are heard when it comes down to the state budget and they're debating on whether or not to fund RIPTA. We're going to make sure that the City Planning Commission recognizes why it's so damn important that we no longer poison our communities in South Providence. So I have to ask, are we ready to organize? Are we ready to organize? So between today, the day after, the week after, and every month that follows over the next several years, we are going to continue showing up and telling our politicians that these interests, the people's interests, are the interests that they must listen to. Not those of the wealthy, not those of corporations, not those trying to expand their profits, but the working people who depend on the bus. The working people depend on affordable utilities. And together, we are going to ensure that we get there. Thank you.
Amazing. Let's keep the energy going. I want to hear your voices. This one goes, people over profit. The earth is not a market. People over profit. The earth is not a market. People over profit. The earth is not a market. People over profit. The earth is not a market. People over profit. The earth is not a market. Thank you. State Senator and trumpeter Meghan Kallman, repping District 15, Pawtucket and Providence, has championed the intersection of housing, climate, environment, and equity fights in the state Senate. She's an accomplished scholar, author, contributor to more than 5 books, including most recently, The Conceivable Future, Planning Families and Taking Action in the Age of Climate Change. Very good. So welcome, Meghan. Senator Kallman, thank you.
Look at this crew freezing their tails off for justice. I love it. Hey, you guys, show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Yeah, that's more like it. All right. I am so glad to see everybody here on this cold day. There's something kind of disturbing happening in Washington right now. Yeah, boo. But we are here to remind ourselves and each other that what happens here in Rhode Island is up to us. It is up to us. We do not roll over. We assume responsibility for ourselves here and now. We have a mandate to take care of each other. We have a mandate to love each other really hard, to protect the people who are vulnerable, and to create the fairest and safest and most loving and most just Rhode Island that we can imagine, even in the face of these threats. And I would actually say, especially in the face of these threats. Nobody else is coming to do this. We've got to do this ourselves. We are taking our power and we are using it to build a future worth having. And that means that we get up every morning and we roll up our sleeves and we get to it. It means that we meet our neighbors. It means that we push ourselves. It means that we show up when it's really fucking cold and we'd rather stay home. Yeah. It means we play our music throughout it all. It means that we rest, but we do not take refuge in fear and isolation, because isolation drives us further apart. We are powerful when we act together. So, Dr. King has a very famous quote, about the moral arc of the universe being long but bending towards justice. It's a beautiful sentiment. However, it does not happen by itself. The only reason that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice is what? Yes, when people bend it, right? We take action to make the world that we want to see. So on this very cold MLK day, we're bending the moral arc of the universe here, and that means that we courageously stand for what we believe in and for the values that make our world fair and our Rhode Island a place that we're proud of. It means we address the plight of those who are freezing in this cold because they have nowhere to live. It means we seek racial justice in everything that we do. It means that we protect our trans children, family members, friends, and neighbors. It means that we protect our workers and our neighbors who have immigrated here from elsewhere. It means that we say we are done pandering to the ultra-wealthy and that we want the rich to pay their fair share. And it means that we do everything in our power to transition to a green economy and to preserve a livable future for our children. Yeah. Now I want to stay on that last issue for a minute because it's important. So the incoming Trump administration has vowed to increase drilling, disregard climate pledges, among, other horrors. There's not a lot of help coming from the feds for us, right? And nobody is disputing that this is very bad news. But that does not mean that our efforts are in vain. In fact, it's because the federal government has pledged to ignore the climate crisis that it especially matters what states do. Trump says he wants to give decision-making power back to the states. You know what? We're going to take that power and we are going to turn it against his vicious agenda. Here in New England, we've got momentum on climate. There's a lot of us on the eastern seaboard, and what we do matters. Whether that is decarbonizing our buildings, shout out to Rep. Kislak, who's my co-sponsor on that bill, creating wind and solar infrastructure, or investing in public transit. Every step that we take towards a better and healthier Rhode Island makes us more resilient, and it makes the future brighter. So listen, everybody in this state lives less than 45 miles from the State House, right? That's not a thing that any other state gets to say, except for maybe Delaware. Our small size is a blessing here, right? It means that government is more accessible and that we need people like you showing up in droves this spring, in droves. This right here, the State House, where David and Jennifer and I work, and many of others of you all frequent. This is where a lot of the really important stuff happens. Decisions that are made here affect the well-being of Rhode Islanders and the rest of the country. This is where the minimum wage is determined. This is where we address housing and shelter. It's where we create protections for our vulnerable neighbors who are suffering from disability or illness. And this is where we build out equitable infrastructure. So there's a lot of organizations and groups here today. If you are not currently plugged in, look around. If you're an organizer representing a group, please put your hand up right now. Help other people find you. If you need a job to do over the next 4 years, look for someone with a hand up. Go get yourself signed up. So history tells us that tyrants always fall. History tells us that the good guys are often really unpopular. It sucks, but it's true, right? History tells us that it takes courage to do the right thing, especially when the odds seem long. But history also tells us that when people work together and stay true to their vision, justice prevails. Yeah. We can be stronger than the dangers we face. Let's make it so. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, thank you. Finally, for our elected officials representative, we want to welcome Representative Jen Stewart from District 15, Pawtucket. 59, Pawtucket. Yeah, 59. Pawtucket, Woodland, and Oak Hill, and Pawtucket. Woodlawn. Yes, Woodlawn and Oak Hill, thank you. Dedicated to our community, always showing up, an award-winning teacher, Fulbright scholar, incredible community leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you everyone for showing up in this cold weather. It's great to be included among all these fantastic speakers. One amazing piece of news is the commutation of the sentence of Leonard Peltier that was announced today. So, yeah, there's gems among the muck. But thank you, Climate Action Rhode Island, and all the organizations that have joined to sponsor today's event. And thank you for listening to me as I share a few remarks today. You know, as I was preparing for this afternoon, I have to admit I was feeling pretty down. I thought, you know, sure, it's MLK Jr. holiday, but as it was, you know, noted already, it's also Presidential Inauguration Day. And I was feeling pretty bad as I dwelled on that frustrating dance we're often forced into. You know that dance, right? That one step forward, then 2 steps back, right? But then I realized that there's actually a kind of hope in that while it's Inauguration Day, it's also the King holiday. That today is actually an opportunity to keep my self-pity in check, and maybe it's something like that for you too, and to choose to be inspired by King's example, along with the example of so many others, and to recommit to working for a better, just society. You know, today as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., there are a few things that I think we should remember, as we contemplate our choices in the days and weeks ahead. First, we must remember that King never acted as a lone individual. Instead, he was one leader in a large and diverse movement, part of a long tradition seeking liberation for Black people in the United States. So, as much as he was an extraordinary person, and we know how our culture likes to promote the myth that extraordinary men are the only ones who've ever made anything good happen, this holiday is about honoring a movement comprised of just about every kind of American at some point in its long history, including women and children. Second, although some people like to act like everyone shared the dream of the civil rights movement and the freedom struggle, let's remember that King's moral vision was condemned during his lifetime as radical, communist, and un-American. Oh, I'm so cold, I can't get to my next page. Okay. Sorry. All right. And for this, let's remember the violent threats that targeted him throughout his life of activism until he was finally murdered. He was attacked by ordinary white supremacists in the South and in the North, as well as targeted by the FBI, who aimed to neutralize him through COINTELPRO. His house in Montgomery was firebombed while his family was inside, and law enforcement never even investigated the crime. 10 years later, when King went to Chicago, where I'm from, to campaign against housing segregation and redlining, he was confronted by mobs of white people he described as more hateful than anything he had seen, even in Mississippi and in Alabama. That's right, shame. Folks like to remember the I Have a Dream speech, but they forget that in the same year that he gave it, 1963, he was jailed in Birmingham for protesting segregation. From that jail cell, he identified moderates as presenting one of the biggest obstacles to progress because they were more devoted to order than to justice and to negative peace where tension is absent instead of a positive peace where justice is present. And let's also remember that King spoke out against U.S. imperialism long before it was popular. In 1967, a Riverside church in New York, condemning the U.S. war on Vietnam, King warned that, quote, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. In response, both the Washington Post and the New York Times published editorials criticizing the speech, with the Post noting the King's speech had, quote, diminished his usefulness to his cause, to his country, and to his people. Talk about shame. Finally, let's remember that in 1968, the year he was assassinated, national polls showed 75% of Americans disapproved of Dr. King. You know, most of us have never faced the kind of repression that King and other of his colleagues faced. Things must have looked pretty bleak at times for him and members of the movement. And today, even though things look bleak in Washington, we cannot stop fighting for what we know to be right, as so many of us, so many said before me, and so many are going to reiterate after me. Despite intransigence of decision makers and signs of spiritual death all around us, After all, the U.S. defense budget is the biggest in the world, bigger than the budget of several countries combined. While we have our fellow Rhode Islanders living outdoors in freezing temperatures, we really cannot afford to surrender to powerlessness and hopelessness. So what can we do? As you've heard, we live in a small state, and that means we can have a big impact locally. We can demand, like Rep Morales said, for expanded funding for RIPTA. Rep Morales spoke of the funding deficit, right? Over 32 million. We know we can't care for our environment if we don't have a viable, robust transportation system that provides reliable transportation to our jobs, schools, medical appointments, shopping, and all the things and places that we need to do and places we need to go. Let's remind people in power they have to do the right thing. So, if you want Governor McKee's phone number, I have it. You gotta give that man a call. 401-222-2080. What else can we do? Well, you know, I live in Pawtucket, but I care about what happens in Providence. You know, we have communities that share common struggles. As someone who lives in Pawtucket, I support the closure of scrap metal operations and other chronic polluters that have been harming families in Washington Park and South Providence for years. You know, we suffer the same problems of environmental racism in Woodlawn, the part of the district that I represent in the House. These are working class communities of predominantly people of color. These communities suffer from some of the highest child asthma rates in the country, as City Councilor Sue AnderBois said. So we know what has to happen. Those operations have to close. Yep. We have seen significant victories in response to years of organizing by the People's Port Authority and others. We need to keep up the pressure and put a stop to polluters in the Port of Providence. Do you need Mayor Smiley's number? I have it at City Hall. It is 401-680-5000. And here's one more thing we can do. We can save Morley Field in Pawtucket. Despite community opposition, the city of Pawtucket has continued to plan to pave Morley Field, the only public recreational green space in the densely populated neighborhood of Woodlawn. They plan to make that park into a parking lot. And that is another example of environmental racism, targeting an historically underserved community. And we have won some significant victories to slow down and reduce the scope of their plans. But we have to do more to finally put their lousy plans to rest and create a green space that Woodlawn deserves. Can you call Mayor Grebian? I have his number too. 401-728-0500. Extension 281. So in closing, let's not dwell in despair. Let's remember examples of King and members of the Black Freedom Movement who insisted on keeping on. Our communities need us, and that's where we can make the biggest difference during the next 4 years. You know, some people won't like it, and that's okay. One day, they'll act like they supported us all along, just like they've done for King and the civil rights struggle. And even if they don't fully learn what King and others tried to teach us, we'll just have to keep pressing on with the lessons. So let's do something, let's do it together, and let's see ourselves as just the latest chapter in the struggle to make the U.S. finally live up to its ideals. Thank you.
Hi guys. Oh, geez, that was loud. Just so you know, we made it to the halfway mark. Good job for freezing with us. Woo! If you guys, anyone willing to keep freezing with us, any volunteers, want to switch out with our wonderful sign holders that are holding up all these signs in the wind for the last hour, we'd be super grateful. So feel free to walk on up. I promise you don't bite. And thanks. All right. Woo!
Yes. Amazing speeches. Thank you, everyone. We're going to invite the co-sponsoring organizations to all come up here. But as we do that, please mill around and say hi to someone that you haven't met before. We spoke about building community here, building the movement. So please introduce yourself. And if you're speaking from a sponsoring organization, get ready to come line up on the step here. Say hello to someone.
Let's start a pause.
Okay, thanks. Hope you guys got to meet someone. We want to thank the following organizations who have co-organized this event with us. We've got URI Students for Sustainability, Climate Citizens Lobby, George Wiley Center, RI Women's Democratic Caucus, RI Transit Riders, RI Working Families Party, Indivisible, Rhode Island, Audubon, Sunrise Brown, Prosperity for RI, Conservation Law Foundation, Environment RI, Climate Jobs RI, Rhode Island Environmental Education Association, Green Energy Consumers, Climate Conversations, Grow Smart RI. And we're going to hear from a few of these organizations briefly. We're just going to have them step on up, introduce their organization, share a quick message, and keep on moving. Get close together, get to know each other. We'll keep moving. We'll keep staying warm. So thanks so much for being here. Let's hear from Phoenix.
Hello everyone, I am so glad you're here. My name is Phoenix Wheeler. My mouth is a little bit frozen, so sorry about that. My pronouns are proudly they, them, and I'm the Director of Advocacy at Audubon Society of Rhode Island. Our 17,000 members and supporters and us have made taking action on climate change a main tenet of our strategic plan because we know climate change is a growing threat for bird habitats and the ecosystem that protects us all. That's one reason we've initiated Repower Audubon to decarbonize all of our properties and reach true zero by 2040. There is a connection between proving decarbonization can be done and making sure it's done everywhere. I know it may be a tough time for many of us to be facing the looming realities of climate change, given everything that's going on in our lives, the nation, and the world. But the building in front of you contains solutions. Solutions like the Building Decarbonization Act. Buildings consist of around 37% of carbon emissions, and the Building Decarbonization Act can and will dramatically change that number over time in Rhode Island. Audubon's made this one of our top 3 priorities because solutions like these are what connect us back to the hope we all need to keep showing up for climate action. In order to persuade legislators to support those solutions, we have to connect with our lawmakers. In order to connect with these elected leaders, we have to connect with our communities on climate action too. The real life stories and collective power found in all of our communities can connect legislators' hearts and minds to the hope we share. And if we do that, I have hope they will prioritize our concerns and take the necessary votes we need for them to fulfill their promises, like the promise legislators made with the 2021 Act on Climate to meet carbon emission reduction benchmarks over time. And when we organize, tell our story, show up at the State House, and we do need to keep showing up. We can make the numerous connections between climate change and health and economic disparities in environmental justice communities, because we know in order to fully address climate change, we need to center those communities continuously devastated by environmental racism. Joining together today is a great start, but we need to keep showing up to this building of solutions and get others to join us. AnderBois already started organizing along with so many of our partners here today, and we are prepared for a number of future opportunities for you to join us as well. Connect with me today, learn more, and sign up. I can't wait. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I counted before. There were over 200 people here today. My name is Greg Garrett. I work with a group called ProsperityForRI.com. It's basically a blog. I write about politics and then I show up. I focus mostly on the economy because, money, you got to go where the money is. And what I find is that the Republicans are acting really stupid, and so are most of the leadership up here, because they keep thinking we want the economy to be healthy. We want the economy to be healthy. If you want the economy to be healthy, there's two things you got to do that they won't do. One, raise taxes on the rich. Inequality in the economy makes the economy work horribly. So let's get a much more equitable economy by taxing the rich. Two, if you want the economy to work in the future, you better get right on climate, and you better get right on climate justice. The amount of money we are going to lose from climate disasters is going to overwhelm the economy. Anybody who wants the economy to work had damn well better get right on climate. And if you're going to get right on climate, it's got to be through justice. We should be doing economic development in our lowest income communities first. South Providence, the port areas, those are the Woodlawn, those are the places that should have solar panels on every damn building. Now! It's time to do those kinds of things first, because that's what's going to lead our economy. And yet the fools up here keep thinking, oh, we got to cut taxes for the rich, and we can't afford to do climate stuff in the poor neighborhoods. We'll let the people buy Teslas. Boo! No more Elon Musk, please. But, they say, climate's for the Tesla cloud. No. Climate work, if it's going to work in America, starts at the bottom, just like the economy. If any of you want to work on these issues, come see me. Have a good day.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Isaac Slevin. I'm a co-founder of Sunrise Brown, the Sunrise Movement Hub at Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design. And really quickly, I want to start this off by can everyone give a really warm welcome to the dozen students who are here for their first climate action in Providence, Rhode Island. It had me thinking about the summer of 2020, because I spend a lot of time in the climate movement now, but that's a pretty new development. When I was a senior in high school, I was brought in to the local group that was initiating what became the Black Lives Matter movement. And at the time, I was a 17-year-old, very excited to cast my first ballot, engage in this thing we call democracy. But there were people who believed in me, even though I had no experience. I had no bona fides. And that kind of movement building, where if you are an artist and you never want to pick up a microphone and speak at a rally, you are part of the movement. If you are a student just getting your bearings, you are part of the movement. If you are someone who's thought that those activists are kind of weird and don't get anything done, but you want to start showing up and you want to start contributing, you are part of the movement. And so there are a lot of us here, but there could be a lot more of us too. And so as we face down this fascist threat, this special group of oligarchs that we are not in, we are going to need to keep organizing. We're going to need to have conversations with people who might not ever see themselves as being part of the movement. Because whether you are focusing on affordable housing, or you are focusing on protecting our undocumented neighbors, or you are focusing on the climate crisis and always have for 50 and 60 years, now is the time where you prove your mettle. And that means showing up, but it also means communicating to the people around you that it's now or never. And one of the reasons that I've stayed in the climate movement so long, I spent a little time in the Black Lives Matter movement, I spent a little bit of time in the movement for the Palestinian liberation, is that when you have an environmental justice and climate justice framework, everything is possible. Looking out for your neighbors becomes everything that you do. And so as we stare down this club that we're not in, this system of patronage, where the oil barons are working together with the warmongers and profiteers, where we see individuals like us who are literally out in the cold fighting for any semblance of representation and progress, it's about the people who aren't showing up who we need to bring here. So I want everyone to turn to someone next to you really quickly and name someone in your life who you want to show up to the next climate rally. Just and make a plan. Are you going to text them? Are you going to call them? All right. Remember that name. When your hands are a little warmer, shoot them a text or write them a little letter. But thank you all so much for coming out. This is the start of a long 4 years, but I believe in all of you, and I know you all believe in one another.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys. I'm loud as it is. I don't really need a microphone. I'm Jackie Anderson. I'm here as the chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Women's Caucus. And we have been for years and will continue to be in support of climate justice for all Rhode Islanders and all Americans. I know it is freezing. I know it is not a happy day in our country, so I will be as brief as possible. So today, of all days, events like this are so important because climate justice is not just an everyone issue, it's also a women's issue. Single mother families are considered one of the groups most significantly impacted by climate change due to their increased vulnerability to economic hardships, limited access to resources, and the disproportionate burden of caring for children during extreme weather events, not unlike this one. Especially coupled with factors like low income and living in environmentally vulnerable areas. Sound like the Port of Providence to anybody? These effects go past just winter months and into the summer months. It also affects flooding and food insecurity in our neighborhoods. 3 fires in the Port of Providence just this last year alone shows how badly we are doing. Providence has one of the highest rates of asthma in the entire country. And I don't believe in coincidences. I myself live near the airport. We also have very high instances of asthma. I don't think that is just a coincidence. Environmental issues directly impact not just our health, but our access to food, clean water, basic human needs. Now more than ever, on a day like today, we need to get pissed off and do something. We cannot stand idly by and let the people that work in this building, except for a few, and Governor McKee tell us that there isn't anything we can do. There's not time. There's not a place in the budget for it. That is unacceptable, and we must hold our elected officials accountable for their actions. Thank you so much. Stay warm.
I would say, it's a little loud. I would say good afternoon, but it truly maybe is not a good afternoon, and it's also freezing, right? However, on the other side of the country, in Los Angeles, it's not freezing, it's on fire. And it feels like everything is on fire right now, but I'm here to tell you, as somebody who has lived in a red state and seen the magnification of Oklahoma prior to moving here a few years ago, we are not that far away here. It takes collective action from every single one of us and all of us at Indivisible Rhode Island to make change happen. Institutions are not just this building right here. This building's going to exist whether we're here or not. Institutions are the people inside the buildings. Those who are elected, those who want to be elected, and those who want to organize for the elected. Students who are here, you are the ones who are in charge right now. I'm 36 years old and I already feel like I'm too late. The ones who are students, you got to bring a +1 to the next thing that we do. The ones who are retired, who don't have anything else to do, bring a +1 to the next thing we do. All right? Organization is a young person's and an older person's game. Those of us that have full-time jobs, capitalism keeps us away from organization. So every single day, we have to do something where we are, whether it's a 2-minute action or like today, a 2-hour action, to do something to move the world forward in our circle to affect other circles. So I beg you today, bring a +1 to the next thing. And anybody who's a student, I need to talk to you about joining our group because we need an influx of young people to join us moving forward. Thank you.
Wow, this is a hard group to follow. But my message for you is a little different. I am representing a national organization. I want to tell you that you are not alone here in Rhode Island. We have 420 chapters across the United States who are working in a bipartisan manner. We're not giving up on anybody. We have many members in Rhode Island. So our charge this year is to protect the Inflation Reduction Act, which is bringing money here to Rhode Island so we can meet our act on climate, and to every state. Okay? The numbers matter because we have to keep reminding our legislators and ourselves that the majority of people in the United States want act on climate. The polls show this over and over. We are the majority. Okay? So we're going to use strong bipartisan action to keep those national laws going. And in the state, we are working very hard too, all of us who live in Rhode Island. And we will be, our job is to make more citizens aware of the legislation that is coming to us from Rhode Island and our legislators as well. So my brain is fading with with cold right now, but please, you are not alone. We are working for you.
Everybody, that was Barbara Warts from Citizens Climate Lobby, and they have a table right there.
Hello. Hey everybody. So today I watched the inauguration of President Donald Trump. And to use a word that Rep. Stewart used earlier, it was bleak. But I also then remembered the experience of voting in November, looking up and down the ballot, also bleak. To me, it felt like these are the best options that we have, really? So I'm Zach Mazzari, I work with Working Families Party. For the last 8 years in Rhode Island, we've been changing the people up here, some of the people who spoke earlier, and winning things like minimum wage and paid family leave for folks. But at the national level, we're doing the same thing from coast to coast. And if you felt that same kind of emptiness, not just looking at Donald Trump, but looking at the options that we have in front of us in Rhode Island, this is the time to take action on that. We're building a new party for everyone who has been frustrated by the lack of options, who has thought this is the best that we can do, really? We can have people like David Morales, not just part of the system, but leading the system with actual governing power to make sure that we tax the rich, to make sure that we put profit caps on the utilities so National Grid or RI Energy or whatever they want to call themselves this week can't keep screwing us. That's not just going to happen. We have to build it, and it's by building a new party. And I think the reason that we do these kinds of activities together is to practice solidarity and see each other together. and we're going to see a lot of each other over the next 4 years. A lot. This is the same group that's going to get that done. If you felt sick about the work that we have to do in front of us, let's not go into the ballot box again next November and 2 Novembers after that and have that same empty feeling. Let's build something new. So text RODI to 30403, go to riwfp.org, talk to me, talk to anybody, whatever, just talk to somebody, and grab an oar, and let's not go on the same old barren shores of cruelty over here and complacency over here. Let's row out somewhere entirely new, build a new party for the people, by the people, that protects our families, our friends, our community, and our climate. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Daisy and I'm with the George Wiley Center. Thanks for joining us on this cold weather like everybody else mentioned earlier. My lips are freezing, so it's kind of hard to talk, but bear with me. Our corporate foes wants us to believe that we have to choose between jobs and the earth, between low-cost energy and climate, between fossil fuels and economic justice. But they are the same institutions who got us into this mess, polluted the planet and poisoned our environment. We know the only way to bring about a just transition to achieve climate justice is by working together like we are today, to challenge corporate power that seeks to divide us. The George Wiley Center focuses on energy justice, anti-poverty, and anti-racism, with an emphasis on issues that impact the low-income households, working-class people, and the BIPOC communities. George Wiley Center organizes for justice and is especially focused on pushing for change that allows everybody to access the basic human needs of water, heat, internet, and electricity. We know that we must demand clean and affordable energy because we are environmental justice and climate justice activists. When we work together to make utilities affordable by restructuring utility rates to make them fairer, we take away the arguments that claim that we can't afford we cannot afford a just transition. By passing a percentage of income payment plan, we make sure that low-income households are not harmed with higher utility costs. We, the members at the George Wiley Center, already use far less energy than affluent people. For example, most of our members take the bus and live in apartments, but unfortunately there are still classist myths that are perpetuated by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Blame our members for using too much energy when it is our members who can serve the most and know how to budget based on low income. Meanwhile, without a percentage of income payment plan in the place, then our utilities will continue to steal from the poor to give for profits to the rich. So I want to encourage all of you to support this mutual effort. Please take a moment to email your legislator. We have a QR code. Voltealo, por favor. Voltea la pancarta. El código QR. Yep. We have a QR code right there. If you can please scan it and send a message to your legislator. If you can't fill out the form right now, please take a picture of it. You can do it back home. But please take action on it and let's make our voices heard. We want to thank everybody again for standing up here with us for what is right. And you guys have planted a seed for change. Also, the People's Utility Summit is this Tuesday, February 11 at 3 p.m. in room 135 here at the State House. Please come. We handed out some red flyers earlier with more information. We hope that you can make it. We need to put people and the planet before profits, and together we can improve our utility programs. See you here again, February 11 at 3 p.m. in room 135. Thank you.
You guys are all awesome, by the way. Thank you for sticking around.
Kirsten, our closer.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you to all of the wonderful speakers that came before me. You are so awesome, and while I do not share your accolades, I do share your spirit and your desire for justice. So thank you for being here. My name is Kirsten Sundell, and I'm a leader at Student Action for Sustainability at the University of Rhode Island. Yay! We are not just students. We are the scientists, researchers, communicators, and environmental leaders of tomorrow. Our organization has worked tirelessly to push forward sustainability initiatives on Rhode Island campuses and provide support for students who are passionate about environmental protection. They need our support, and they need your support. If you are an organizer, a politician, a representative of anything, we need your support because we're going to be the ones cleaning up this mess. Today, changes unfold in our country at the hands of an oppressive administration that has told us time and time again our planet is not their priority. The environmental protections and climate initiatives we've fought for are at risk. When agencies like the EPA face defunding, it's not just politics, it's systemically dismantling the institutions that young climate scientists will be devoting our careers to. We've spent years preparing an educational foundation that will meet the needs of a changing climate, and we will not be torn down by conservative extremists. We will resist. Today, we send a message that we are watching, we are organizing, and we will not back down from our commitment to environmental protection and climate action. Billionaires will never put planet over profit, so we the people are here for the fight. Thank you in joining us for demanding that our leaders protect our future, our careers, and our planet.
All right, let's hear. No more coal, no more oil, keep the carbon in the soil. No more coal, no more oil, keep the carbon in the soil. No more coal, no more oil, keep the carbon in the soil. No more coal, no more oil, keep the carbon in the soil. Thank you. Woohoo! Next, we want to welcome our closer, our classic closer, eloquent author, environmental lawyer, dad, representative of the people, and director for Climate Accountability Project at Public Citizen, somehow not a hat wearer. Strange. Aaron Regunberg.
Hi everyone. Oh man, still being out here. It's incredible. You know, we are here on an emotionally difficult day, right? And we're staring down the barrel of 4 emotionally difficult years, and we're at the edge of what's going to be a very emotionally difficult geological era for all of us on this planet. So I thought I'd close today by talking a bit about emotions. And the first that I want to touch on is anger. When I think about climate change as an abstract process that we're caught in, I, for one, get kind of overwhelmed, right? It's too big, it's too scary, it's demotivating, at least for me. And we need good sources of motivation to continue with this work day in and day out for the long haul. But that abstract picture changes entirely when I think about the actual concrete history, right? And remember that climate change isn't just a tragedy that's befalling us. It is a crime that has been committed against us, right? The climate effects that are driving the infernos raging across LA, or the floods that wiped communities off the map in North Carolina this fall, or that are causing the extreme heat waves killing thousands of Americans every year. These are the direct and foreseeable and, in fact, foreseen consequences of a small number of fossil fuel companies that generated the vast majority of all the global greenhouse gas emissions that have caused our planet to heat up, and deceived the public about the lethality and dangerousness of that reality, specifically in order to block or delay the solutions that could have prevented this crisis we're facing today. What's more, they did all of this with full knowledge of just how lethal their conduct really was, having long predicted that the continued burning of their fossil fuel products would cause, in their own words, I'm quoting now their internal memos, they would cause, quote, catastrophic climate harms that would do, quote, great irreversible harm to our planet, that would have, quote, serious consequences for man's comfort and survival, that would create, quote, more violent weather, more storms, more droughts, more deluges, and that would cause, quote, suffering and death due to thermal extremes. I mean, these corporations were so confident in their own climate predictions, they were using them to make big business decisions, like raising the height of their offshore oil platforms for the sea level rise that they knew was coming, all while telling the public the exact opposite. Now, I'm a lawyer, and we have a concept in the law for when someone consciously disregards a substantial risk of causing harm to another person. That is called criminal recklessness. And that's what I mean when I say that while climate change is unspeakably tragic, it's not just a crime. It's not just a tragedy, it is a crime. And I, for one, refuse to let these evil bastards get away with it. And that refusal, that anger, is a very useful tool, for me at least, in what sometimes can feel like very demotivating times. You know, I've learned, of course, that you can't let your anger become an all-consuming flame because it'll burn you out. What we need to do is turn our anger into a slow-burning flame, right? A smoldering backlog that we can rely on, that we can use, that we can rev it up and get it going when we need it, and we can throw some ashes on it and bank it when we don't. So that's one source of emotional energy that keeps me going. And the other emotional dynamic that I think we all need to work out for ourselves is the one between despair and hope, right? And I'm going to be honest, the despair side has a lot going for it, right? Climate change is accelerating faster than all our predictions. Feedback loops, physical and, as we're seeing, political, are looming. And the catastrophic effects we're seeing are going to be increasing not linearly, but exponentially. Shit's gonna get really bad. Like, really bad. And I think it's gonna happen faster than a lot of us are expecting. So when I say hope, I'm not talking about some pure, unalloyed hope that everything's gonna be okay, because it's not. It's just not. The hope that I'm talking about is a grimmer and rougher, but ultimately I think realer hope that the future can still be worse or better depending on our actions, right? That we can still flatten the curve of climate disaster, and that it's still better to keep going than to give up. And I'll give you one concrete and very personal example. My wife Katie and I have wanted to have another kid. We wanted our son Asa, who's here sledding somewhere, to have a brother or sister. We'd actually been trying for a while. We went through multiple miscarriages, where at the first ultrasound appointment, they tell us, actually, no, there's nothing there. On the third of these cycles, our ultrasound appointment just happened to be scheduled on Wednesday, November 6th. So the morning after this presidential election. So that morning, I was thinking to myself, well, okay, it's probably going to be another miscarriage, and that's probably for the best, because this is not a world that we need to be bringing another child into. And then we head in, and they start the ultrasound, and what do you know? This pregnancy's happening. We have a due date, June 10th. We are all systems go. You know, for any with a passing understanding of the climate science, there are a lot of solid empirical reasons in this moment to choose despair. But here's the thing, right? Like, where does that get us? What does that do for us? You know, we're here now, we're alive, we're breathing, and every minute we continue to exist, to breathe, to get up, to raise our children, to organize, to come out in the freezing cold to rally for climate and future. We are choosing hope, right? Hope that it's better to keep existing. It's better to keep breathing than not. It's better to keep getting up than not. It's hope that we can save enough of this mind-blowingly beautiful planet and this flawed but still miraculous civilization to make going on be worth more than not. That's what hope is to me right now. And I think that if we can keep holding on to that, if we can mix it with regular doses of righteous anger, we can get through these next 4 years. And then we can get through whatever comes after that. And then we can get through whatever comes after that. It's not the brightest vision, but it's a long haul vision. And this is a long haul fight that we're in. And I'm really glad to be in that fight with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Aaron. All right, that honestly is going to be like the end of our rally so far. I just want to say a few words before we end it completely. Thank you, first of all, to all our organizers and all of our speakers, and especially all of you guys who stuck it out for pretty much 2 hours. Thank you. It is flipping cold out, so good job. I know we're going to hear a lot of echoes of all the concerns and all the fears and all the things that we're worried about, all the corporate greed, all the politics, etc. I think we all know that as a people we've suffered enough at the hands of greed, and now we're facing the consequences that go beyond just money. We're all scared, anxious, and honestly at this point we're all really fed up. Some folks are still catching up to realize the reality we're facing, especially when money is involved. As Upton Sinclair said, it's really difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. But we're at a point where we don't have the luxury or time to wait and go back and forth debating on whether it's real or not, whose fault it is or not. And I think that's part of why we're all here, because we know that. We're Rhode Islanders, whether born or raised and or from somewhere else, and we're ready for change. We're more than ready to act, and we've been ready for our state to be even more people and planet-centric, and we are really fed up with any corporation or greed trying to derail us to keep the status quo. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys again so much for being here. Keep on fighting. And Climate Action Rally will be here with you guys the whole way. Good job. Yay!